Today I am recording a podcast episode on time management. You often feel like time is running your life instead of you running your life, then this episode will absolutely be for you. So let's just get started. Hello, I'm Inse and I hope you are having a beautiful day. Welcome back to the Studio I podcast. I was talking with a friend yesterday about how she always feels like there aren't enough hours in a day. She felt like she was running behind on life all the time. And I related so hard to this because that used to be me. But I implemented some systems that helped me move beyond that feeling, and now I run my life, not time. So if you relate to this feeling, this episode will be for you. If time is running my life, and that still happens sometimes, the first thing I always do is take control back. I can't manage my time if I don't know what I need to make time for. That doesn't make sense, right? Yet so many people just try to wing it. You have a vague idea of what you need to do, and then you end up running around like a headless chicken. I don't know. Is that an expression in English? I don't know, but yeah. Let's keep on rolling. I want to make a side note to this episode before we get started. In the productivity space, there is a lot of talk about time management and how you can fit as much in your day as possible. And I don't agree with this. I think we should manage our time well, but not because it should make us more productive. Great time management, in my opinion, reduces the time you spend on things that you have to do and leaves more time and space for the things you want to do and that actually bring you joy. So the first step is to get it all out of your brain. Get everything that's in your head onto your computer or onto paper. And I like to start off by just dumping everything that comes to mind. There is no need to structure anything yet, just dump it all out. If you try to structure it, that will distract your brain from dumping it out. So list all your to-dos, big, small, it doesn't matter if you want to do them today, tomorrow, or even in a year. Just get it out of your head. That will probably already leave you with a pretty long list. Mine is usually a page long at this point. But then you're going to make the list a little longer. I'm sorry. So all the to-dos you have listed now are probably acute things that don't happen all the time. But there are a lot of things you need to do that take time that you don't think about. So for that, I use a trigger list. These lists make you think of all the areas in your life and any to-dos in that area. I'll link some good trigger lists in the description, but my absolute favorite one is the one from Michelle Beast because it goes so in depth. There is no area that gets forgotten. There's really no area that gets forgotten. And maybe I should make my own trigger list, but honestly, if there's something good out there from another creator, then it doesn't really make sense to me to create my own because I just want to spread love, you know? She's one of my favorite creators. She has something that's really nice, so I will just link it to hers. By now, you should have everything you need to do in your life in front of you. And the biggest thing that you need to do is to not panic. I always tend to panic when I see this incredibly long list, like, thank you, anxiety. But once we structure it, you'll see it's actually quite manageable. And if it's really too much, at least now we can start cutting it down. But how do we bring structure into this mess on paper? You're gonna ask yourself two questions. The first one being, do I have to do it or can somebody else do it for me? For example, if you have a partner, maybe they can take up some of the work that you need to do around the house. Or maybe a friend can help you out, or at work, maybe you can give some of your workload to a colleague. And the second question would be, does it have to be done at all? Sometimes you think you have to do things that actually you really don't have to. You just think it's expected of you. Let's take an example after your wedding. Do you really need to send out handwritten thank you notes, or is a simple message enough? Now, if you want to write those cards, by all means, write them if that brings you joy. But nobody's gonna judge you if you just send them a thank you message or email instead of the cards. They're probably already going to feel appreciated because they got a thank you note at all. So for the things that you think you have to do, you don't have to. And that's pretty empowering, right? To know that there's a lot of things on your list that you actually just feel like you should do, but you don't have to do. So for all of those things, be brutal and just delete them or scrap them out from your list. Just get them out, get them gone. You don't need to do them, and they don't need to take up space in your head or in your life. And then what do we do with those things that we said we're gonna ask other people to help out? Highlight all of them in one color and then add one extra task to your list. Delegate tasks to other people. That way you don't forget it and it's easy and clear. Now, there still might be a lot of tasks left on your list, and that is totally okay. So we're going to dive a little deeper into the structure of the list so that you can manage your time and your anxiety or whatever it is a little better. So are there any tasks that you can batch or do together? The friend I was talking about in the beginning of the episodes has this talent of doing everything right as she thinks of it. So she'll realize she has to go to the store and she does that, and then in the afternoon she realizes, shit, I also had to get gas for my car, and then she will do that. And then the next morning she remembers she also had to go to the hardware store, so that's what she does then. But now imagine how much time you could save if you did all of this in one go. You would only have to get ready once, you would only have to find parking once, and you could even think of a route that is most efficient to get all of those things done. And now you might think, and you might want to scream at me, like, that's not how my brain works. I won't think of all of that at once. My brain just thinks of everything at when it's time to think of it and yada yada yada. Well, that's what your trigger list is for. At the beginning of each week, create room for yourself to think. Part of managing your time well is leaving space to think, so your head is not in constant chaos. But even if you use your trigger list at the beginning of each week, it might happen that you still think of things on the spot, and that's totally normal. We are not robots. You can't control your brain completely. But if you think of a task in the middle of the week, chances are slim that you actually need to do it right then and there. But you might want to, right? You're scared that you will forget, or it might take up space in your head, so you just want to get it over with. And that is where catching your thoughts come in. For me, I annoyingly send everything to my boyfriend in the course of the day and then put it in my agenda once I have the time. But a better system would be to write it down in your notes apps and then go through it at the end of the day. And I really should get in a better habit of doing that, because poor dude, because he gets a lot of messages throughout the day. This might sound familiar, and that is because it's the catch principle of getting things done, and it actually really helps to calm down your mind. Let's go back to batching. I got a little bit distracted. So you want to take a look at your list of tasks and see if you can batch them together and maybe even create routines around them. So take all your errands, for example. Could you do them all in one go? And can you maybe in the future create a weekly routine of doing all your errands on a Monday morning, for example? That way, if you think of an errand you need to run, you immediately have a set time to do it, and thus avoiding stress and decision fatigue. Same for your household tasks. Maybe you can make your Friday afternoon your cleaning time. And if you have a lot of administration to catch up on, can you do that all in one day too? And can you create a weekly routine of doing an hour of administration every week so it doesn't pile up? And you might think that some things can't wait so long, or blah, I hate putting things off. And you're right. Sometimes it doesn't make sense to wait. If a task takes less than 2 minutes to complete, do it now or as soon as you get home. But only if you know it actually takes no time at all. Because no, you can't fold all your laundry in 2 minutes, or you can't call your insurance company in 2 minutes either. The whole alone will probably take 30 minutes. If it takes longer than 2 minutes, schedule it in. And now, what do you do with those tasks that can't wait? Well, tie them to something you already have to do. So let's say you have to send a package that you sold and it can't wait till errands day. For example, I sell a lot of packages on Vinted, and sometimes I get an order in on Monday evening or Tuesday and it can't wait until next Monday to get it done. But then I won't go out of the house just to go do that if I still have other things to do that day. I will drop off the package when I have to get out of the house anyway, for my yoga class, when I go on a run, or if I have to go to the store that day. And chances are high that I will probably have to leave the house for some reason. So if I then tie other tasks to that, it will still end up saving me a lot of time instead of just running out the house 5 times a day. Even when it's a little detour, it will still save me a little time. So now we have talked about batching, but how do we structure all those batching things into 1 week? You might have the idea that juggling all your responsibilities on every single day is impossible and you have so many things to do, like you have no idea how you will ever catch up with this. Well, don't panic. I have a system for this and I call it my building blocks. Now, my building blocks are, I've mentioned my building blocks a lot on the podcast, I think, but that's because they're one of my favorite systems to use. So how do you use the building blocks? So my building block system takes all your responsibilities that you would normally try to juggle in 1 day, and flips that to juggling all of them in a week. So you have 10 building blocks and you will divide them into big and small. I usually work with 6 big blocks and 4 little blocks, but it can also be 5, or even 4 big ones, 6 small ones. It doesn't really matter. So you're gonna take a piece of paper and you're gonna draw on 6. I will just take the example of 6 here. You will grab a piece of paper and you will draw 6 big blocks and 4 small blocks. And you're gonna fill them out with your responsibilities. So for the big blocks, those are the things that take up a lot of time. For example, your 9 to 5 job, or for me, my freelance work, the content for this podcast and the YouTube channel and the entire Studio I brand. I want you to write 1 big block for self-care and rest, because that is going to avoid you to burn out. And then for the rest, you're just gonna look at what you enjoy and what is important to you. If you're a parent, well, your kids will probably be a big block. If you're a student, you will have a big block for going to class and a big block for schoolwork. Just look at the things that take the most time and put them in your blocks. And then in your small blocks, you're gonna put in the things that you actually enjoy doing and that are really important to you. So those might be your hobbies, going out for drinks with friends, visits for family, your workouts. I mean, if you're training a lot, then your workouts might be a big block too, but for most people it will be a small block. Household tasks might be a small block or a big block if it's something that's really important to you. But just fill out your blocks until you have your 10 blocks in front of you. Now, in those blocks, I want you to also list all of the to-dos of everything that you have to do for that certain block. So for example, for your household tasks, you might list all of the things that you need to clean and do around the house. So you have a very, very clear visual of everything that you need to do in those blocks. And it will be like a mini reoccurring trigger list or a to-do list that you can just check off every single time. And that's gonna help you to not have to remember everything in your head. The more we can get onto paper and the more we can plan on paper, the better, the emptier your brain will feel, and the more you will feel like you are running your life instead of time running your life. When you have your building blocks, you're going to put them in a calendar. You can do this on a physical calendar. You can do this on a physical calendar, you can do this on a digital calendar. If you tend to switch things around a lot, I recommend doing it on a digital planner. But if you prefer so when it comes to planning those building blocks into your calendar, there are 2 rules that I live by. There are 2 rules that I live by. Plan the most important things first and always work with your energy. Now, to plan the most important things first, there are always some things that you have no control over, like when your workout class is, or when you need to be in class or at your job. Those things go in your calendar first because you can't decide when to do them. You can only decide if you will go or not. And even for your work, you can't do that. So that's what you put in first. So for me, that means that I always put meetings, yoga classes, and when I have to be in the office first. But then you want to put in the other most important things. That might be your passion project or the time with your friends and family or working out, whatever it is that is most important to you in your life. And it doesn't mean work. It doesn't have to be work. It is what's most important to you, and it's what makes you thrive. Put those things in first, and then you can plan the rest around it. So keep in mind that the most important thing does not mean work. It means what is most important to you. What are the things that you need to be able to thrive and feel like your best self? Those are the most important things. Now, if you have a 9-to-5 job, well, yes, you will have to be in the office from 9 to 5. But then after those 9 to 5, I still want you to plan in the things that make you thrive first. You will see that your life is going to be so much happier, even though your house might be a little messy or something else might not be perfectly done. If you have time for the things that bring you joy, that will make life so much better, and it will feel like you have more time because you're actually spending it on things that matter instead of time just slipping through your fingers while you're just waiting to get other things done to do the things that you love. But by planning the important things first, I don't mean you necessarily have to do them in the day first. You just put them in your calendar first. Because my next tip to work with your energy might be the most important tip that I have for you. We all have different times of day when we function best. I'm a morning person and my boyfriend is a night owl. I know that in the afternoons I am worthless. So it would be stupid to plan my most difficult task during that time. But for my boyfriend, he only wakes up by the afternoon. If he has to get up in the early mornings, he's just a zombie. So for him, it would be stupid to plan more difficult and highly demanding tasks in the morning. So look at what your most productive time is. I am my most productive in the mornings, so that is when I schedule my most intense tasks. Then in the afternoon, I do chill things that don't require me to do as much thinking. I prefer being reactive in the afternoons, and in the late afternoon and evening, my brain tends to be a little bit more creative. So that is when I like to do brainstorms or just think of new ideas. And it's a bit harder to work this way if you have a fixed 9 to 5, but even then you can try to divide up your tasks according to your energy. I used to do all my writing in the morning when I still worked my corporate job, and then do community management in the afternoon because it was reactive instead of active. And that worked really well for me. So try to find a rhythm that works best for you. Fighting your natural productive times only costs energy, and you'll spend way more time on tasks than if you would actually work with that energy in the first place. So to plan your most effective weeks, take your most important blocks first. Then comes time for these small blocks or even for some bigger blocks. You would like to do it all, but if you see that it doesn't fit into your calendar, you need to prioritize. I know you would love to do everything, but it's just not always possible. If you want to feel like you have a lot of time in your life, you will have to schedule more time for the things that you have to do. That will prevent you from always running after time. If you are quite broad with the time that you set for things, it will also make you feel more at ease, which will lead to you having the idea that you have a little more time in your life. For example, if you want to build a business, maybe it's okay if your house is a little messier. If your business is successful, eventually you can just pay someone to keep your house clean. At least that's what I tell myself at the moment. But in all seriousness, take the things that will push you towards your dream life first, then the things that make you feel good, and then the things that you think you need to do. But look at what moves the needle and spend most amount of time on the things that actually move that needle so you can develop your dream life. But you get my core idea. But now I want to talk you to my personal planning routine, because I think that might give a nice example of how I schedule my time. So I start off by planning monthly, and I plan in all the events I have to attend and all the deadlines I know I need to make. Then I also plan in the cleaning that I don't need to do every week. So for now I assign a week to when I have to do it. For example, clean our oven, I need to do that once a month. So I will pick one week when I have to schedule that into my weekly planning. Now every month I decide on a focus, and all my main tasks will go along with that focus. In August it was launching Studio I, quitting my job and finding freelance work, and I have done all of that, so that is super cool. And September it's launching the first course for Studio I and getting a full-time income while freelancing. So most of my to-dos and most of my building blocks will be around those things that I want to focus on. For you, that might be getting your kids to school or renovating your house, for example. Whatever it is, try to tie as much of your tasks to your focus of the month. And I really highly advise you to have a focus and create a vision around that, because that will help you to hit those goals every single month. But then for weekly planning, I start off every week by planning in the fixed elements, like I mentioned before. And then I like to start with the things that make me feel good. At this point in life, those are the most important things. So I plan in my morning routine, my wind down at night, and I also like to plan out some fun activities throughout the week. Then I will focus on what will move the needle in my business. Right now, that is awareness. So I plan in a lot of time for making content. And to work with my energy levels, I plan to write podcast episodes and YouTube videos in the morning, and then I film and edit them in the afternoon. And once I have all of that planned, that is when I will add housework and groceries and things like that. Now my freelance work gets kind of sprinkled in between, looking just depending on the amount of work that I have to do that week. My weeks tend to be pretty full if you would look at my calendar, but that is because they are planned full of rest, fun, and productive things that I need to do. So I schedule all of it out, so I make sure that I actually prioritize the things that bring me joy. Because when you just try to do things on the fly and you keep all of your to-dos in your head, you will probably be working on the things that are in your head the most and that take up the most space. And for most people, that tends to be work, household tasks, and things like that. And when we are only reactive on the things that are in our brain and running around in chaos, then you often forget to schedule the things that bring you joy. You often forget to actually work towards those goals and dreams that you have, while you actually do have the time for them. You just have to be a little more intentional of how you plan in the things and what you give your main focus to. Now, of course, we all have to give our focus to our jobs, but outside of work, I heard a quote once, to use the weekend to build the life you want and not to escape the one you currently have. And I found that really powerful, and that is what led me to start prioritizing building my own business on the weekends. And that is something that you could totally do too. Or if you want to spend more time with friends, well, then you have to actually just schedule it in. Time management is more than just fitting everything in a day. It's also prioritizing the things that matter the most to you. And lastly, I wanted to quickly touch on daily planning too. Because I plan all my weeks in Google Calendar, and then I use To-Do to make a to-do list every day. And I put the to-dos in order of what I have to complete, and I also put rest and fun in there because those are to-dos too. Like I said before, they are just as important. And the final point of this episode that I want to make is, I might be a planner, but I also value flexibility, and I highly recommend that you do that too. When planning gets in the way of life, there's just no point. So you gotta leave room in your agenda to shuffle things around when last minute things come up. You gotta leave room for outing with friends and spontaneous vacations, because that is what makes life memorable. But that's actually pretty easy when you have a calendar, because you can just see everything that you need to do, and you can see what you can move around to prioritize other things. So not only is this episode about time management, but I also think that I kind of made a point here for just organizing your brain, which is something that I also have a YouTube video on. It's called How to Declutter Your Brain, and I will link it in the show notes and the description and here in the card too. So that is something else that you can watch if you are interested in learning to create more structure in your brain and in your days. And that was the end of the episode. I hope you enjoyed it, and please leave a nice review if you did. It really does help a lot. And if you're watching on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe to see more. You will get a new podcast episode from me every Monday and a new video every Friday. And I love you lots, and I hope to see you soon. Toodaloo!